And you can't end the day by patting yourself on the back and going, man, I did a really amazing job today. I'm the best. And you also can't end your day by saying, wow, I suck. I didn't get this thing I wanted. I didn't win this motion, or whatever it is.
Wouldn't you love a backstage pass to candid discussions at the crossroads of motherhood, justice, community, entrepreneurship, mentoring, and success? Host Melissa Rosenblum is one of only a few women certified by the Supreme Court of New Jersey as a criminal trial attorney. When you add kids, a booming law business, and a little black book full of subject matter experts, you've got the Mighty MERP podcast. That's mightymerp.com.
Welcome back to the Mighty MERP podcast. This is Melissa Rosenblum, and I'm excited to talk to Nancianne Aydelotte today. She is a founding partner of Aydelotte and Scardella Law Firm. Actually, it's just, see, it's not a firm. Doesn't say law firm under the back. I'm going to try that again. All right. Welcome back to the Mighty MERP podcast. This is Melissa Rosenblum, and I'm here today talking to Nancianne Aydelotte. She's a founding partner of Aydelotte and Scardella Law. Her key areas of practice are criminal defense, as well as domestic violence, municipal court, and has frequently lectured on these topics as well as ethics. Welcome, Nancianne.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am so excited to talk to you. I feel like it's been ages since we've had really in-depth conversations of how our careers are going and how we're navigating them.
Yes, especially because I'm not in Atlantic County so much anymore, so I don't get to see your shining face in court so much.
I know, but it's always so exciting when we run into each other, isn't it?
It is. And, Melissa, I have to say, back when I was a law clerk and I was meeting all of the lawyers for the first time and getting acquainted with, what the criminal bar was like in Atlantic County and just lawyers in general, you were the nicest. You didn't treat me like a law clerk. And I just always thought to myself, I really want to be like her in my practice. And so I'm really honored, 10 years later, past my clerkship, and now we're more colleagues and peers, and it's just really cool. So I always kind of wanted to thank you for that, and I don't know if I ever did.
Thank you. I really love mentoring and teaching, and I think that's I always feel like when new attorneys are coming in, that the best thing we can do is to just welcome and encourage. So thank you. I appreciate your kind words. So we're here today to really talk about women in law and sort of our hurdles and obstacles that I just think are different than men, and especially in our area of law, criminal defense work, which is so male dominated. Mm-hmm. And I know that you've had, experiences in navigating being a woman lawyer. Both in Atlantic, and you're mostly in Camden now, right?
Yes. And my partner has an office in Mercer, so I'm in Mercer and Camden more than Atlantic at this point.
Right. So maybe we can start with what your expectations were when you started practicing in law versus some of the experiences that you've had, especially with working with and interacting with other women and men in the criminal justice system.
Sure. So I think one thing that definitely sticks out to me is when I was a young baby lawyer and a law clerk, I just kind of thought, well, I'm good at this. I care. I'm preparing. I'm working hard. So I am going to be treated just like anybody else, or just like the male colleagues in the bar. I really was naive enough, Melissa. I truly thought with enough hard work, when I walk into the room, I'm going to be treated just like anyone else. And day one, walking into the Superior Courthouse in Mace Landing on the first case that I appeared on by myself when I was a brand new lawyer, And it was, maybe 2 weeks in, and my boss at the time said, okay, you're going in on this case, because I'm sure it was a case that he didn't like, or it was hard, or he didn't feel like
and this is
driving that
after
day.
your clerkship. This is
Yes. Yeah, so this would have been right after the clerkship. So maybe about a month after the clerkship ended, into my brand new practice, working for a solo criminal defense attorney who is a male. We should mention that if we're talking about the female-male dynamic in criminal defense. And he was a very well-known, well-liked, well-respected criminal defense attorney. So I thought, well, his reputation is going to rub off on me and everyone will treat me great. So I walked into the courthouse, and I had this really nice briefcase that my judge, Max Baker, who sadly passed away recently, he had gifted this bag to me. Beautiful leather. Levenger is the brand, which I had never heard of, but I love their products. I get all their stuff now. Levenger brand, beautiful leather briefcase. And I'm sure his wife picked it out, but it was gorgeous. And I walked in, I'm feeling great. I have my beautiful outfit, my nice brand new suit, and I put my suitcase or my briefcase up on the metal conveyor, the detector, and the sheriff's officer goes, "Here's your purse, ma'am." Hands it back to me. "Here's your purse." And I just kind of looked at him like, oh, he must not realize I'm a lawyer, even though I'm standing here in my very nice suit and my nice shoes and my hair is done, my makeup is done, and he still thinks that I am just a member of the public coming into the courthouse for whatever reason. And here's my purse that I'm giving him, which is huge. And who carries a purse that big? But and I just remember being completely flabbergasted by that. And I know he didn't mean anything by it. And that's, I think, a topic that you and I can relate on, is that there's a lot of sexism that goes on that people are just not thinking. They're not being considerate. They may not intend to act in a certain way, but it still affects us, and it affects what we do. I
think you said it really well, that the comment wasn't meant to be insulting. And yet, how many courtrooms, how many times have you gone to court and people have said, whether it's a sheriff's officer, the court staff, you're in a new courtroom and the question is, and you are?
Right. Even the judge. I mean, it's because the sexism is rooted in these assumptions, right? I mean, I come into the courthouse as a younger, I guess I was 26 at the time, younger female in a criminal courthouse, which is, as you said before, the criminal defense bar is so heavily male dominated. You do have a good number of female prosecutors, but the defense attorneys are overwhelmingly male. And so
the private defense bar in criminal law is majority male. I mean, I think out of when I became a certified trial attorney, which was in about 2015 or 2016, there were only 25 women on that list.
You go, girl. That's so badass. I love it.
But the point is that, and most of them were prosecutors. Just think, in the whole state of New Jersey, that's it. I'm sure it's higher now, 7 or 8 years later. But so it is amazing, the way you're, I think the assumption is that you're not the lawyer, and then you have to, correct, correct whoever you're talking to. And I'm not sure why that is, especially when you're wearing what I call the court uniform, right?
Yes. And that's interesting that you're bringing up wardrobe again, because that sticks out in my mind so much about this day when I went to court and I had my beautiful briefcase and my beautiful suit. And I felt like I was projecting the image of an attorney, not somebody else. And it wasn't that way. That assumption followed me just by virtue of probably my age too, but also just being a woman walking in, and that assumption follows us around. And it's hard because you don't want to overcompensate, right? You don't want to act like we probably know other female attorneys who maybe are insecure about things, and they come across very like they're compensating. They're being too forceful, or they're being too what they think they should be instead of what they really are. And that's just, it's kind of sad to see. I'm sure you can think of people that you've seen in your career that are overcompensating for that assumption. Because what's the saying? You know, I have to work twice as hard or be twice as good as a mediocre man in my profession.
Well, I think it's this. What you're saying to me reminds me of a few different things, but I think that women have to balance the too much complex or being too much. And when I say that, I mean too much of everything. Like, we can't be too confident. We can't be too polished. We can't be too aggressive. We can't be too meek. We can't be too pretty. But we also can't be too ugly. We, and we have to find this balance that I know men never have to think, is this too much? Am I too much? And we have both worked for and know men that walk in with the confidence and cockiness that, is permeating from them. And if we did that, I think the reaction would be, who does she think she is? And so there's that. There's also, if a man goes into court and the opposite of being overly confident and cocky, if they're like the absent-minded professor, like bumbling and mismatched a little, people still think that's endearing. Right?
Right.
And for us, we're frumpy and not put together, and it shows that we're not organized, which none of that could be true, but it's just the stereotypes and assumptions that people make. And so, I mean, it's definitely a balance. I will say, and I don't know if you're there yet, you've been out 10 plus years?
Yes.
I am at the point when I go to court, I dress now. For me, I'm very confident in my style. I'm not trying to prove anything. I wear what I want to wear. I don't wear traditional suits unless I'm in front of a jury. And I feel like when I'm in front of a jury, I have to look the way they think a lawyer looks. But
of course,
when I go to court normally, I just wear dresses and things that I'm comfortable in. And I don't really care what other people think, but I will tell you, people comment on my outfit every single day. Every day.
Saying that they like it, or?
It's something. Oh, that's nice. Or I like that. Look at your shoes. Or that's, it's just always something.
Well, with women, I mean, we're always getting comments on our appearance, even as little girls. It's, oh, what a pretty little dress, or your hair is so cute, or, that's always the first comment. It's never, you're so brave, or you're so smart, or it's always, what a cute outfit, what a cute little girl. And that follows us throughout our lives and into the courtroom. And I think I almost got whiplash from nodding so hard when you were talking about, as women, we cannot be one extreme or another. We have to constantly search for that middle ground, because if we're too frumpy, or we're too pretty, or we're too feminine, or we're too masculine, people are going to have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that, because I have struggled so much with that. I still wear at least a suit jacket, or blazer type jacket to court every single time. And my law partner, who's a little bit older, she's about 5 years older than I am. Shout out to Lauren Scardella. She needs a shout out. She's about 5 years older than I am, and I won't say how old she is. But she's a very attractive female attorney, and she has a lot of confidence. She's been doing this about 15 years or so. And she also, like you, she'll wear something professional always, but she may wear a cardigan over a dress, or something that's not the traditional suit. And I'm just not there yet. I just feel uncomfortable doing that. And I just feel like, God, I already have enough trouble proving who I am in this courtroom. I got to at least have the jacket.
Okay, so I'm going to give you my 2 cents of advice, okay?
I'm ready.
So I don't wear suit jackets because for me, I feel like they're straight jackets. Like I feel I'm like the 8-year-old kid that's itchy and, I just can't do it. They're very constricting for me but I would say, wearing clothes that are professional and comfortable, like creates a confidence and authenticity. And my second advice is if you put pearls in a nice pair of shoes with anything, you will be court appropriate. And that's really my philosophy. I'm kind of trying to work and change that idea that you have to be in a suit jacket. I do a lot of dresses with cardigans and sweaters. And then I think a nice piece of jewelry and a nice pair of shoes, and you're good to go. And I say that confidently that I do that about 90 to 95% of the time. When I do go to different counties that do not know me, I usually have a suit jacket on. So that I don't get asked, I was in another county and I walked in and I was handling a domestic violence restraining order hearing. And when I was going in, I said, could you tell me where the domestic violence courtroom is today? And, the sheriff's officer said, and you are? And I look at them and I just raise my eyebrows and they say, victim advocate. And I'm thinking,
right.
Why wouldn't it be lawyer? I don't understand. So
sure, it runs through the gamut. Are you the victim advocate? No. Are you the interpreter? No. Are you a family member of the victim? No. Are you the victim? No. It's
right. Well,
it's like a game of guess who.
Right. I used to get court reporter, paralegal, which there's no court reporters anymore. So I've aged out of that one. Right. So it's a very unique perspective because, you talked about being young and having that experience, but I know men that are 26 or 28 or young lawyers going in, if they're in a suit, it's presumed they're a lawyer. My clients that go into court in suits and waiting in the courtroom are presumed to be lawyers if they're in a suit.
Yes. I've had that experience too.
Right. So it is interesting. So after your clerkship, so you were working with a solo practitioner, and aside from the experiences of having to almost stomp your feet to say when you're in court, I'm the lawyer, which you don't want to do, right?
Right.
What was the experience of working with a, should we say, successful solo practitioner? Respected man, who did exude lots of confidence. You would agree with that.
Absolutely. And I used to joke around and call him the prince because he would walk into these courtrooms, and now he was established for many years as well. He had established relationships with court staff and judges, especially in the municipal court arenas, which, as you know, they're all their own little fiefdoms, and they all have their own personnel and people that you have to butter up. But he would walk into these courtrooms, and I mean, you would think he was literally the prince. I mean, how are you? Good morning. Oh my gosh. I walk in, it's like, can I help you? So right off the bat, and I think you would agree with me, when you're feeling confident, like how you were saying, when you're wearing an outfit that's comfortable and you feel like you and you have confidence, when you're feeling confident, you are a better practitioner. The words flow better. The whole thing is more seamless. And when you feel like you're being stared at or judged or not being accepted, that can actually impact your performance as a lawyer and rattle you. At least it did for me at first when I was starting out. But I would see my boss go into these courtrooms and just get treated like an absolute prince. And I thought, when is that going to happen for me? And 10 years in, it really still hasn't. I mean, of course, I have good relationships and a good rapport with court staff members, but I've never completely crossed that threshold like he did. And I wonder if that is a male versus female type of thing. I don't know. I'm kind of just thinking out loud. I'm not saying that is what it is. Certainly the pandemic has alienated us from court staff and
right,
kind of set those relationships back, in my experience at least. But yeah, what was it like for you? I mean, the difference, did you notice a difference in the way you were treated versus your male coworker?
Right. So I, like you, was working with a solo practitioner who was very well established, and everyone loved him. And he grew up in Atlantic County, and I'm not from this area. So my experience initially, for about the first 2 years at least, I would go into every courtroom, and we'll talk about municipal court here, because I think with Superior Court, the kind of holding my own as an attorney came a lot quicker. But in municipal court, and it's all about personalities and your relationships. And I would walk in for 2 years. Every time I would see the prosecutor, and I would not presume they would know who I was. And there were some that I would come in and I would say, "Hi, I'm Melissa Rosenblum-Pozetzner. I'm an associate with blah, blah, blah law firm, and I'm handling the case today." And I had prosecutors who would pretend that they did not know who I was for 2 years in a row. 2 years.
And you'd been there multiple times, I'm sure, at that point.
Hundreds of times. We're a small community down here, a small amount of attorneys. And, it was really eye-opening to me that it felt like I was not given just a courtesy of respect as a professional. And it wasn't until I say that prosecutors and court staff felt like I had value. And I don't really know when it turned, but there was a change eventually. And I don't know why they decided I had value all of a sudden. So that was also interesting. And I don't know if it was a woman thing or an outsider thing on that issue. But I remember I had a whole day of arguments on motions in Superior Court. And my boss, who later became my partner, said, "I need you to go to Hamilton Municipal Court. I need you to go get a continuance on this case, or resolve." I don't know if it was continuance or resolving the case. And I said, "I can't do it." And he's like, "You're right there. I can't get there." And I said, "I know our philosophy is to be nice to everyone, but I'm exhausted. And when I go and I'm treated poorly, I'm going to lose it. I'm not going to be able to hold it together today." I said, "You don't want me to go?" And it was a court where people, every time I would introduce myself and everyone would act like they didn't know me, and they would give me offers that were clearly different than they would have given my partner. And I was like, "I can't do it today." And he said, "I'll call and I'll make sure, and it was after that date. And I think maybe because they understood that I had, real motions in Superior Court, it was after that they were like, "Oh, she knows what she's doing." I don't know what it was, but I literally was like, I can't go and be nice. I can't pretend that this person hasn't met me 100 times, because, I was like, I can't pretend. I pretend most every other day, and I just smile. But there was a change, and I don't know what it was, that all of a sudden people were like, "Oh, she's here and she's staying and she knows her stuff." And I don't know why it took so long as well, But I would see my then boss go in, and they were like, comparable to what you were saying. Loved him. I mean, if I went in sometimes, they'd be like, oh, it's you and not him. And I'd be like,
visible disappointment.
Visible disappointment. I also had a little bit different experience because when I started working in this area, I had already been practicing for about, I've been practicing 26 years, so about 12 years already. So I wasn't new to lawyering. But I look younger than I am, which is good. But I would go to...
definitely agree.
I'd go to municipal courts and the prosecutor would say, I take it in the years you've been admitted to the bar. In the order, so there'd be, 10 defense attorneys. And the prosecutor would say, I would say like, well, I was here before this person. And he'd say, well, I'm taking in the order that you've been admitted to the bar. So those who've been practicing longer get priority. And one day he said it, and I said, okay, let's put our years down. And maybe other than Jerry Steiner, who's been practicing forever, I was the next person. And the prosecutor had to do a double take. And I was like, yeah.
But that's the thing. We shouldn't have to prove. It's a constant battle of proving worth that detracts from what our job actually is and from the work we need to be doing for our clients. That the male attorneys just don't have to worry about that. They don't have to constantly feel that pressure to prove their worth or say, I have seniority. I've been practicing X number of years, because that's also another thing that works against you. If you're female and you're young, well, you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. And then when I started winning motions and winning trials, and it was, oh, she actually does know what she's doing. But I do think at the beginning of my career, and I do have to thank my boss for this, it was kind of like the association with him actually really did help me at first. I really think it did. I as much as I maybe don't want to admit that sometimes, I want to just think, oh, it's all my own merit, my own personality, my own hard work that got me to where I am. Being associated with someone who was and is so well liked and respected, it's almost like as a woman, I don't think I would have been able to just start out on my own and get to where I am now. I kind of had to have that helping hand from an established male. I think the reality is I needed that.
Right. But did you need it? I mean, so I agree with you on most of what you're saying. I am grateful for what I learned in the relationships that I was able to create as a result of the goodwill of my former boss and partner. There was a lot of goodwill that came down to me, and I'm thankful for that.
Sure.
And I learned a lot, and I'm thankful for that. But I don't know if it had to be a male that taught me it. It happened to be a male that taught me that, because that's who I worked for. But I don't know. I'm trying to, with my own firm, kind of create that positive avenues and connections for my staff. As a woman, I don't know. I mean, you said it like you're thankful that were you thankful that you learned it, that you received the goodwill from him, or that it had to be from a man who gave it to you?
Well, I think because of society being the way it is, it was better that it was a man.
That's sad.
I don't agree that I don't think it should be that way, but I think it is that way. And now, don't get me wrong. If I had worked for, let's say, you right now, at your status, your career, your number of years, your practice is expanding. You're doing an amazing thing with your practice. If I were fresh out of law school right now and working for you, I think the same thing would happen.
Oh, I was going to say, did you want me to start wooing you? Because I'm looking.
Sometimes maybe it would be better to have that paycheck. But I think we're agreeing that the goodwill that came to us from the male person that we worked with was helpful. But But what I'm saying is I don't think I could have just left the clerkship and said, you know what, I'm opening up my own shop, which of course is a huge risk for a male attorney to do as well. Being a brand newbie and saying I'm going to open my own shop, you don't have those established connections. But I do think I would have failed if I had tried that.
Yeah, it just seems like men do it more. So let me ask you now, because you have a good transition there. There came a time that you decided to leave and open up your own law firm. So What was the tipping point? Was it the confidence that you had in knowing that you could do it? Or was there something that you realized that you needed to move on?
Yeah, I think that it was time to move on because the personality of my former boss, he's more of a solo. He's just not the kind of person that wants to have a partner and a practice like that. He kind of just works better in the format of attorney, associate. And right now, I don't even think he has an associate. I think he just has paralegals. But in any event, I just knew that partnership wasn't going to happen and advancement wasn't going to happen. And I think you're right. I think the confidence, because I had been doing so well and establishing those relationships, those connections, and feeling like, okay, you know what? I have a good client base now. I have a good rapport with all of my clients. And I just felt like self-employment has always been my dream too. So I thought, you know what, I don't want to work for someone else forever because that's just not what I want to do. So if I don't want to work for someone else, I have to go out on my own. And so all of those things combined led me to start my own practice. And I actually, after my first boss, I did work for a female attorney for a brief period of time. It was only about maybe a year and a half, if that. And there are some interesting stories there, but that did not work out. And after that is when I started my practice as a solo. Did that for about a year and then partnered up with my current partner for the past 3 years. Almost, just about 3.
And so have you run your practice differently than what you saw? Did you take things from your old practice, from being an associate, what you learned there, and implemented it where you are now? Or did you decide to have a clean slate and create something uniquely you?
I took a lot of things from my prior employment because I'm definitely not here to bash my previous boss. He did a lot of things very well. And there were a lot of things that kept that business churning like a well-oiled machine. And I thought, okay, he's got a lot of experience and running his own practice. And I did take a lot from him, but partnering up with a woman and a younger woman, who also, like us, had the experience of working for a solo male attorney for quite a while before she went out on her own. I've taken a lot from her too. And seeing her perspective and the way she practices, it is very different, which I think is interesting to see, the differences between the way she does things and the way he did things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to younger attorneys coming out? I mean, you know, we're talking about the fact the area of law that we do, that's not very female dominated in the private practice. And and I think people don't realize that even though law school has more women in it than men now, I think it's like 52% women, only 48% men. And then women go into practice, a lot of women step out of the practice of law too. And so by the time you're 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out, there's not as many women practicing. It's still a male-dominated field. What would you say to either younger Nancianne or somebody, you know, graduating law school right now?
Wow. So many things. So many things come to mind. Don't do it is one. No.
I was going to ask you that question too, because it's such a great question to ask lawyers, and they're so passionate about whether they would recommend it or not. But yeah, I mean, what advice would you give?
I have a couple of things that come to mind. And one thing that this is not so much a sort of a female-based thing or a male-based thing. This is just a practice thing. As an attorney, you can't let the successes get to your head or the failures get to your heart, because chances are you didn't have anything to do with either one. There's a lot of luck and circumstance and the way, you get a certain judge for a motion as opposed to a different judge, or you get a client who's really receptive to a plea agreement that another client wouldn't be. And you can't end the day by patting yourself on the back and going, man, I did a really amazing job today. I'm the best. And you also can't end your day by saying, wow, I suck. I didn't get this thing I wanted. I didn't win this motion, or whatever it is. Because as long as you're doing your best, number one, the facts are what they are. You know this, Melissa. Any attorney knows this. You can't change what happened. You can't change your client and who they are. So there's a lot of just suspend your belief about yourself always. Just kind of keep your head down, work hard, but don't think that when you win something, you're the best attorney in the world. And don't think that if you lose something, you're the worst attorney in the world. As criminal defense practitioners, we lose a lot because the system is set up that way on purpose. Until the point of trial, the prosecutors have many advantages, and that's how the system is set up. So I think that's something that, because I think when you're talking about attorneys, or mostly women, leaving the profession after a number of years, my speculation or my opinion on that is maybe the constant roller coaster of, wow, I'm such a great attorney on Monday, and then Tuesday you feel like crap. I think that constant roller coaster of how you feel about yourself as an attorney and a practitioner, that's just terrible for your mental health, and probably physical too.
Yeah. I think
so if you can just kind of not get into that pattern of riding the roller coaster,
right,
that's going to save your mental health.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can in a day go from high to low to in between. There are times you win a motion, you're like, I'm awesome. I lose a motion, right. I stink. But it's really funny that you say that, because I would jokingly say that, the men I know, they win the motions and they're like, I'm the best, awesome, greatest lawyer in the world. And then they lose a motion and it's that judge didn't know what they were talking about. And it's never, I jokingly have said to my former partner, I love that my successes are, you own all my success. He has said, like, he's responsible for like all my success.
Mm-hmm. And then I've received comments like that too.
And then and when I have said, well, what about my failures? None, like any failures. He's like, nope, that's you. So yes. So
right.
But I do agree with you that, I think that hard work creates good luck and good fortune. They kind of go hand in hand. But, there are cases that hurt your heart. There are clients that you want to do more for. And sometimes, the facts are not going to support a positive outcome. And I agree. If you based your happiness on winning or losing, which is really not what the criminal justice system is about, you would be, bipolar.
Well, it's not what it's supposed to be about. But I have heard rumors, for example, that a certain prosecutor's office keeps tallies on wins, and it is about winning. And as a prosecutor, they get to win a lot. So I'm sure that does start to inflate some egos. And right. But you're right. It's not supposed to be about that. It's about seeking truth and justice. whatever path that takes, whether a prosecutor has to give up the house for that, or our client goes to prison. I mean, it's not supposed to be about, like you said, winning or losing. And winning or losing is often a gray thing.
I was going to say, we can debate.
The client goes to prison and it's still a win sometimes. It sounds crazy to say that.
Right. Well, I would say that the definition of winning and losing is different for defense and a prosecutor. And there are trials that I've had where my clients were found not guilty of first-degree robbery and, found guilty of a theft. And that's a win,
Mm-hmm. Right.
But, yeah, I do agree with you that, you went down a road when you talk about prosecutors, like talking about winning. That just makes me so angry. Mm-hmm. It makes me angry because I'm always like, what are you winning? My client has a family.
Right.
How can you cheer or I don't know. I just think like
I had a prosecutor say to my former boss, I was in court with him on a big case when this was happening, and the prosecutor said, "My job is to convict your client." And my boss, he gave it right back, and he said, "You know what? That's not true. Your job is to seek truth and justice." And I could not have been prouder of him in that moment. And I actually get goosebumps. I know that sounds a little corny, but I actually get goosebumps thinking about that moment, because that moment was so real and so raw. And I was just really in awe of him in that moment. And I never obviously forgot that.
Right.
Because that is what a prosecutor's job is.
And there's an RPC, Rules of Professional Conduct, which says that's what their job is, and it's not to convict. I do find that as we went down this road, that my biggest issue is that it seems like most prosecutors can never admit that they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong on
their
the
offices foster that they foster an environment of, it's almost like a smug, we're right, we're the good guys, we're on the right side of things. And this, of course, is not everyone or every individual person. I have a lot of prosecutors that I have tons of respect for, but there are, from what I understand, some offices and some sections or teams that feel that way.
Yeah, it's one of the things that drives me crazy. So did we finish the advice to young Nancianne? Oh, yes, we did.
I think, the summary, I said it, I made a very convoluted, long
No, I got
piece.
it. You can't live by the highs or the lows. Yes.
Right,
Yes.
Exactly. And that's tough. I have many days, 10, 11 years in, where I'm still struggling with that and trying to tell myself, okay, you did your best. You were handed a pile of garbage, and you still managed to put a little dollop of whipped cream on the pile of garbage. So cool. Good for you. So I still struggle with that. And I try to remind myself all the time that there are a lot of wins that I really can't even take credit for. Prosecutor was in a good mood that day, or, you do your best, and maybe you make a difference in 80% of your clients' lives, and the other 20, you have to just close the door on that and know that you tried.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. So, advice to college graduates, for example, an Eliana who's thinking about law school, you say, no, don't do it.
That was a joke. Was it? I don't know. I have to re-examine that. But a college graduate thinking about law school. I would say that going into law school, you do have to make sure that you have the mental toughness. If someone's the kind of individual that cries when someone looks at them wrong, maybe law school is not for them. Thick skin. I think you have to have the self-awareness as a 22-year-old, which is hard to find at that age, but you have to have the self-awareness to know if maybe your personality is not suited for that. And of course there are transactional type jobs that are not the type of pressure and stress that litigation entails, like what we do, more high stakes kind of stuff. Of course there's a need for people to draw up commercial real estate contracts and sit in an office and do that all day. So you don't have to necessarily be a brazen type to do that work. But yeah, I think somebody has to really want it. I don't think it should just be maybe I'll just go to law school just because, unless you have the money. If you just have, $300,000 lying around and you just want to do that for fun, go ahead. But I think you have to really want it. You have to know that you want it.
Yeah, I agree. And Eliana doesn't have $300,000.
Well, who does?
So that's actually very funny. Most lawyers aren't trial courtroom attorneys. I think we're the exception. I just think we're surrounded by people who are all trial attorneys.
Right. No, you're right. You're right.
Because of what we do. But I think she would want to do trial work as well. It's just very interesting. Everyone who's practicing law, or who was a lawyer, because I know a lot of people who are not practicing anymore, there seems to be such a strong reaction to should I or should I not go to law school. And I've had Judge Sanson, he has been working for 4 years of Ellie's college of saying, don't go to law school. And he had an extremely successful career. He was successful as a lawyer. He was successful as a judge. And he's adamant for her not to go to law school. And I think, and I do think, back to our conversation about, and your advice of really wanting it, is that I really like what I do. I mean, sometimes I'm exhausted. Sometimes I'm frustrated with the system because I have to explain to my clients that it's not really fair or just in many ways. But my kids have seen that I really like what I do. And which is why some of them want to be lawyers. But I have to say to them, there are a lot of lawyers that don't like what they do.
Yeah. Well, plus it's such a, I guess, a pigeonhole that you get into. And of course, people say, oh, you can do other things with a law degree, which you can, of course. But obviously, it's very tailored toward you get a law degree, you become a lawyer. That's a pretty obvious thing, right? And so even though people say, well, you can do other things, you can, but I do think that's why some people just stay in the profession, because it's too daunting to think of, well, what else am I going to do? What else are my skills tailored for? I mean, I'm not going to be drafting pleadings, being the manager at Costco, which I'm sure a law degree, you'd be a great candidate to be a manager at Costco. I think that would actually be a really cool job. But, I do think people kind of get stuck. And there's, of course, a cycle too, which most of us have debt from law school, and we're just trying to keep up and make enough money to pay off that debt. And that's another reason I think people stay stuck in the profession.
Right. Well, I find that my friends whose first job paid a lot of money, but they didn't like, and they stayed in it because it paid a lot of money, are the attorneys that are mostly miserable. And my friends who went into the area of law that they wanted to go into, or switched into the area of law that they wanted to go into, are much happier with what they do. So I do say to young attorneys, when I'm talking with them about their career paths, if they say to me, I don't really like this area of law that I'm in, I sort of fell into it, that was the job I was offered, I'm always, my first advice is change now. You're only a year in, you can start something new.
Right.
And, people tell me with my law firm, you should do this, you should do this area of law, or I can get you these contracts. And I'm like, no, I know my lane. I can't do something different now. I've been doing criminal law for 26 years. I'm not going to start dabbling in an area of law that I'm not going to be proficient, or, at this point I feel in criminal, have an expertise and a confidence. I don't want to learn anything new when it comes to, contracts, real estate, divorce,
Right. Right. Oh, and that's interesting you say that, because I started my career with a clerkship in criminal. And then for the first 5 years of my career was exclusively criminal. And then the second law firm that I briefly worked for before going out on my own was a family law attorney. So I was still taking on criminal matters, criminal municipal court matters, but I also had to handle family law stuff and started to bring in family law. And it's just the misery of divorce and custody, which I have done until recently. So the last 5 years of my career, I have supplemented my criminal municipal court practice with family law, and it has been difficult. So I like your advice to a young lawyer to say, if you don't like that practice area, get out, because you will get stuck. And now you're in this wheel that keeps turning, and divorces keep coming, and those cases last forever. So you just have to keep doing them and trudging through them. So yeah, I think you're right. You do have to find the practice area that you like, and make sure that you don't, fall into the trap of, well, I could make more money if I also did wills, or if I also did this. And I think there is a perception that some of the attorneys, that you go on their website and there's like a list a mile long of their practice areas. They do wills, trusts, estates, criminal, personal injury, medical malpractice. And you're like, you can't possibly be good at all of those things. Like you said, you have been a criminal practitioner. That's your expertise. And I think I agree with that. Really, you can only do one or two practice areas and be good at them.
I mean, and
I'm sure some people hate me for saying that, the people that are just trying to earn a living, so they take whatever case comes their way. But I just don't see how you can be good at that many things. You just, there's too much knowledge you have to have, and practical experience, that you have to focus.
Exactly. I mean, are there exceptions? Can people do it successfully? Yeah, I guess there are some exceptions, but I don't really know. I think the law firms that I know that are really successful, and I'm going to talk smaller now, are the law firms that have a niche, and they're known for that. So with regards to your law practice now, and having your own law firm, I know you were solo for a little bit and now you have a partner. What about running your business? Did you love, or do you love? And what's about running your business that you wish you can give to somebody else?
Oh, that's funny. I think I got very lucky with my current partner, because we do have some strengths and skill sets that overlap, of course, but we're also very different. I mean, she makes a mean spreadsheet, and she likes to keep track of data, and there are things that she just automatically does, and who knows, maybe she doesn't enjoy them and she's just saying that she does, but she does them and she executes. And I'm so grateful for that, because I'm much more intuitive, big picture. I don't like numbers. I don't like data. I don't like tax things, which of course we have professionals, bookkeepers and all kinds of people, CPAs, to assist us in those really nitty gritty things that I hate. But yeah, I think running a business with a partner is really great, because you do have somebody else to spread the annoying tasks around. I mean, I don't know how you do it. I know you have staff, but you don't have somebody else to say, hey, I did that annoying thing yesterday. Can you do it today? And my partner is really good about that. If I'm having a day where it's particularly difficult clients or potential new clients that I've consulted with all day or something, then the next day she'll handle it. So that's been really, really great for me to have a partner who's willing to kind of help me carry the load sometimes. But yeah, when it comes to the actual business, I'm not the best, and my partner will tell you that. I'm not the best with numbers and accounts and things that are super businessy. I don't know that I have a career as a business person per se, if it weren't for the practice of law and my partner.
Well, I always say they didn't teach us how to run a business, when we were in law school. I mean,
No,
I didn't
they
know.
didn't teach us how to practice law.
There are things that I jokingly say to my staff, and I do have I'm fortunate. I have an amazing staff. I have two young women who I hired, both of them right out of college. One is a Stockton University graduate, and she's 2 years out, or almost, she's 2.5 years out. And I have a Rowan University graduate, both criminal justice majors, who is about 1.5 years out. And they're just so hardworking, and they're pretty good about kind of dealing with clients that are a little difficult and then letting me know for me to follow up with them, so I'm not bombarded with that. But yeah, it is really hard in the sense of, I didn't know I was going to have my own business. I am fortunate. My parents were small business owners, so I did get to see it from that perspective. They were not lawyers. My dad and mom, my dad owned video arcades when I was little. So pretty cool. Yeah.
That is so cool. I did not know that.
And then later in life, they had a cigar store, which had lotteries and a card store component to it. But I saw the small business element of it. I never really thought I would be a small business owner. But, I say now I wish I took business classes. I feel like there are things that I'm missing. And I have an accountant who does my taxes and things like that. But I feel like that's not my strength. I also feel like the copier machine, they didn't teach us this in law school. Sometimes I'm fighting with the copier and I laugh at it. I just have to walk away and I look at my staff and I'm like, I didn't learn this. I don't know how to make it work. Can you do this?
It's true. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts, literally and figuratively, to running a small law firm. I just try not to think of what I do as a business, although it is. And I guess in a technical sense, I am a business woman or a business person, but I'm fortunate that much of that in the day-to-day is not something I deal with a whole lot.
Well, who does your marketing?
We have a company called Digital Esquire. Shout out Digital Esquire. Or no, it's Esquire Digital, I think. I don't know. I may have just screwed that up. They used to be called Next Level and they just changed their name. They are wonderful. They do our social media posts. They do our website. They're great. So we have really good help with them, which my partner had already established a relationship with them from her solo practice. She was a solo for about 3 years before we joined up. So she already had that established, which was great. I just kind of jumped into it. I got lucky. I mean, I kind of jumped into my partner's firm almost in a way. I mean, we formed our own firm, but she was more established on the front end. And so there were a lot of systems and things already in place that I give her credit. She did a great job putting those systems in place, and I have been benefiting from them. Yeah, you're right. The copier can be tough.
Well, I just mean when it jams, I'm like, I can't fix you. I'm sorry.
Well, it says it's a jam and it's not. And I'm like, stop lying to me. There's no paper. Nothing is happening. Like, you drama queen. I know it's maddening. And of course it only happens when you're like under the gun and the judge called and was like, send me this thing. And you're like, okay, now the copier jammed.
Right. And then it's, a lot of the stress is when my staff isn't there and it happens. And I'm like, oh my goodness, why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? So, but, all right. Well, I usually finish these podcasts with some rapid fire questions, and I'm like changing them up all the time. I did ask you the law school question. Would you recommend law school already? These are easy, and they're supposed to be fun, so there's no stress on them. When you're not lawyering, what do you do for fun or relaxation?
That's a good one. I really like to cook. I consider myself a good cook, and I enjoy trying out different recipes. Of course, drinking the wine while cooking is a fabulous way to unwind. And I have a 2-year-old rescue dog that is very active. And so I take her on at least an hour, if not closer to 2 hours worth of walks every day. So lots of walking with the pup, and cooking and concerts. I enjoy, I'll see just about anyone. It doesn't matter who. I love to go to concerts, big or small venues. Last night, actually, my dad and I went to see a Led Zeppelin cover band in Millville at this place called the Lavoie Theater. It was awesome.
So much there. I was thinking, what's your favorite thing to cook right now? And then I wanted to be like, how big was the concert? What was the venue? So I don't even know where to go from there. What are you reading, or are you reading any books right now that you would say highly recommend?
Right now, I'm actually trying to force myself to read more business improvement lawyer type books. And I just started reading, it's actually in front of me. It's called Tiger Tactics, Powerful Strategies for Winning Law Firms. And I just thought, you can always improve. And I shouldn't just be reading, fiction type books for pleasure. I should probably throw in some business type stuff, even though I don't want to. But I just started Tiger Tactics, and it's actually pretty good. So for any small law firm owners, I think it's so far a pretty decent book to check out.
Gotcha. I am going to check it out. I've been reading a lot of leadership books right now.
Ooh.
Which is kind of back to where we started. There were lots of things I learned from my old law firm that I am greatly appreciative of. And the philosophy of working hard and being kind to everyone and respecting everyone. But there's also things that I didn't like that I would like to create a better work atmosphere for my staff. And because we're growing and we're trying to hire an associate, I feel like, everyone who's working with me is helping me build the business. And I would like to be a leader that they feel like they can come and share and help build the business, and they have an investment in it as well. So.
Wow.
Are you binge watching anything?
What was the last thing? Oh, the last thing I binge watched was The Watcher on Netflix. Was it last week, the 13th, which was my birthday, October 13th.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I guess that was last week. God, I don't know. It's been a long week. It feels like one of those weeks that it's like 2 or 3 weeks condensed into one. So it was last week. My birthday was last week, and it was raining. And my best friend had come up to visit and spend the day with me. We were going to go shopping or go do something. And we got sucked in to The Watcher, which the producers of the show, I believe, are the same producers who do American Horror Story and Glee and American Crime Story. So it's sort of like dark comedy, dramedy type stuff, which I enjoy. And it started a little slow, but it got better, and I enjoyed it. So we watched the whole thing. I think it was 7 or 8 episodes in one day. And that was the last thing. What about you? Is there anything good that I should know about?
Oh, no, I'm not the person to ask at all. I'm not the person to ask. Everyone tells me all these shows. I had breakfast this morning with a group of friends. I call it my old man breakfast group. And they were talking about The Watcher. And it just was interesting that you mentioned it too. But no, so... I run a lot.
Yes.
So I wake up early in the morning, about 5:30, 5:45, and I run. And then I work a full day. And then by 8:30, I'm ready to go to sleep. And
right.
And so I don't really watch TV anymore. And it's not because I wouldn't. It's just I don't feel like I have time with everything. but I hear all these shows and I'm like, that should go on my list. And, has not. So.
I get it though. I mean, look, TV is not the best thing for you. It's better to do what you're doing, take care of your mind, body, and spirit, read books about leadership. I mean, we should all be more like you. Come on.
Stop.
You're
the
awesome.
running is my mental health though. I mean, my kids will say, go for a run, Mom. And they're saying to me, you're getting a little snappy. You're, like
you're being cranky. Go get the endorphins. Go.
Yes. And then come back. Yeah. Favorite color?
Ooh, purple. All shades, lavender, violet. I just think purple is the prettiest, and anybody who thinks otherwise can fight me.
There you go. So that is Ellie's color. Eliana's favorite color is purple and lavender, and she's committed to it. And and it works because mine is pink, and we all like to have our separate colors in this house, but we do a lot of pink and purple together, which yes. So thank you so much for joining me on the Mighty Merp podcast. I know we've been trying to do this for a while. I love talking to you. I love cheering your career on and cheering all your successes. So proud. I saw your, you've been a super lawyer a number of times as a rising star.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, about 4 or 5 years now.
Yes. And I just, every award I see or when you're lecturing, I'm always so proud of you. I don't mean that in a condescending. I really am cheering you on with all your successes, and I just love it. So thank you for sharing. Hopefully young women can listen to this and sort of be able to navigate through the legal system and have the success as they're hopefully going to change it so that we don't get the, who are you?
Right. Oh, you're right. And thank you for the kind words. And I'm really thrilled to be able to call you a friend and a mentor. So thank you for that and for having me today. This was really a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening in. Mighty Merp is available on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite apps and players. But the best way to experience the show is to visit mightymerp.com. That's mightymerp.com. This podcast is not a source of legal advice. No two legal cases are the same. Contact an attorney if you require legal assistance.